Kornacki. What do you got over there?
I have Cody Lingelbach playing a what looks to be a Team Italia.
And over here we've got Elves.
All right, so a little combo on, aggro control type of deck. Team Italia, again, a deck that was championed by Gerard Fabiano. It is a red, white, black, kind of mid-rangey-esque deck. The deck list for this deck, kind of like the bug control decks that we've talked about, they vary greatly, and I know you have his deck list in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. When Gerard Fabiano kind of championed this list at SCG Worcester, a lot of people were taken aback by the card choices, but really it's not surprising to me. Gerard Fabiano had a lot of success with junk, and Team Italia is a very junk-like deck in a lot of ways.
As we do see a Thoughtseize lead off here for Cody, you guys are going to get a good look at Leon's hand there on the left. He has a Fyndhorn Elf in play, which is just a makeshift Land of War Elves for you newer players at home. But you also find 2 copies of Heritage Druid in Elvish Visionary to go along with the ever-popular Deathrite Shaman, with the last land in his hand being a Misty Rainforest.
Depending on his hand, if he's got removal, getting rid of one of those Heritage Druids would be very good. And if he doesn't, getting rid of the Elvish Visionary just to keep a further push into the deck will probably be another possible choice. Deathrite Shaman seems unlikely to me, but I mean, it is there, so he goes with it. Shows what I know. We've got the access to that. I think if we look at Cody's deck, there are lingering souls in his deck, which is one of the things he's trying to protect with that.
And so what you're going to find here with Leon's deck, for anyone who's not familiar with combo elves, this is a deck that generates a lot of mana via Heritage Druid and Nettle Sentinel. There are other ways, of course, between Fyndhorn Elves and Quirion Rangers, and a lot of other different cards. The goal, of course, is to cast a glimpse of nature before all of these, so that all of your elves do cantrip. So you can draw a card for each one that you cast, making a boatload of mana, drawing a boatload of cards, and then finding some way to kill the opponent, be it an Azuri Renegade Leader, be it a Mere Entity, be it an Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn.
Now, he has laid a Nettle Sentinel. That Nettle Sentinel in combination with the Heritage Druids in his hand, very much a big deal. And then on the other side, Cody Lingelbach lays Dark Confidant, affectionately known as Bob.
Draw step for Leon there was a crop rotation. Again, an older card that some of you guys may not be familiar with at home. And what crop rotation does, very simply, it is a green instant where an additional cost, you sacrifice land and you can actually search for any land in your deck. It is a card that has a very high power level. One of the cards that this deck typically does search for is Gaia's Cradle.
We see an attack here, it looks like. 1, 2, 3 creatures coming in. And this is going to become a very huge mana explosion. Sure, it cost him 2 cards, but, oh, Pendelhaven, boom. Never mind the mana explosion. Instead, it's going to be a fast pump spell here. +1/+2 to a 1/1 creature.
So it looks like because Leon he hasn't drawn a glimpse yet or any of his real combo pieces. We haven't seen, a card like Green Sun Zenith be drawn by him yet to search up a Regal Force. Nothing of that nature. He's just kind of going the beatdown route, maybe using Bob against Cody. This time it doesn't work as Cody's able to draw a dual land, but that might be his plan in the future. As you saw, he did also hold some creatures in his hand, just in case he does finally draw that glimpse.
And see that Umezawa's Jitte in Cody Lingelbach's hand. Umezawa's Jitte is classically one of the most devastating cards that can be played against elves. If you can connect with it, it's very problematic for them.
And you saw that he did kind of drop it there before casting the Inquisition, because again, it is extremely important in this matchup, and it does actually join the table now. Looking over Leon's deck list, just of ways that he has out against Umezawa's Jitte, a creative way, of course, is Wirewood Symbiote, being able to block and then return the elf that you do block with before damage resolves. But as far as, a card like Viridian Corruptor or something like that, you're not really going to find that. But what you do find here is a fetch land searching out a Dryad Arbor for the ambush on Dark Confidant.
Boom. Now there are no creatures in Cody's play in order to be able to do anything useful with that Jitte. Jitte doesn't work unless you attack with it. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Cedric Phillips. We're watching Elves versus Team Italia. Team Italia, a red-black-white mid-range deck initially designed by Gerard Fabiano. And Elves, this deck has been around in some form or another for probably about 14 years. And the current incarnation able to explode out with Nettle Sentinel and Heritage Druid. We see the first push towards it. 3 mana. Heritage Druid, if you tap 3 elves, you get to have 3 green mana. Nettle Sentinel untapping when you cast a green spell. And we see here he gets the Wirewood Symbiote, and the Symbiote in combination with the Elvish Visionary provides him a working man's version of Howling Mine.
And so now we have kind of one of the mini combos of this deck, which is Wirewood Symbiote with Elvish Visionary. He's going to be able to bounce, block and bounce the Elvish Visionary back to his hand and see 2 cards a turn. Also, one of the things that's also going to enable is he'll be able to untap Nettle Sentinel because he will be playing a green spell each turn, so we'll be able to keep attacking where there was a turn there where he wasn't actually able to attack with it.
Now, Cody Lingelbach here, he does not really have any kind of mass removal in his main deck. You're not going to see something like a Pernicious Deed or anything like that. It's all point and click. Swords to Plowshares, Vindicate, Edict-like effects with Liliana of the Veil that let your opponent choose. He's going to have his work cut out for him trying to actually chop away at the force of elves that Leon Kornacki has in play.
And when you don't have that mass removal effect like you spoke of, Adrian, it really makes Wirewood Symbiote shine because that's the first one that they have to kill. That Vindicate has to start there because, again, you can't kill any of the elves unless you've somehow tricked your opponent into using the ability already because it is a once per turn ability. But, again, you have to actually start with the Symbiote before you can take care of anything else.
Waiting in the wings for Cody Lingelbach. Game 1 is looking pretty rough for him. And he could pull it out, but I wouldn't be wanting to be in his shoes right now. I think we're going to see a Lily. Liliana hits the table, perhaps. Edict you for one of those creatures, perhaps. Yep. Which one? This elf. Waiting in the wings for Cody, though. A sweep spell that's pretty devastating. Perish. If you don't know Perish, black 2 sorcery. All green creatures die.
That Nettle Sentinel should still remain tapped because it did attack and he has not played a green spell yet this turn, so hopefully we can get a hold of our spotter there really quickly. Yeah. Of just, it doesn't untap quite yet.
I think he might have... No, never mind. I'm wrong. I was going to make a claim about Wirewood Symbiote, but no. And again, that Perish is something that Cody can look forward to in the board, but this game, things are looking pretty rough for him. Leon Kornacki contemplating where to go with this turn. We see the opening with that Visionary that we knew about already. Yeah, and the... Elvish Visionary was returned to hand to untap that Wirewood the Nettle Sentinel.
So we should be we should be all good to go there.
We see a fetch from Leon Kornacki. This is the first round of the Legacy portion today. We'll be bringing you 3 more rounds after this, and as much magic as we can cram into every round possible. Can see the damage coming on in.
No, we're actually going to be doing a little bit of Heritage Druid action here.
Yep. Boom. Here comes the Visionary again. Draw again, please. And it untaps my Nettle Sentinel.
A green spell will untap that. And the tricky thing about this elf deck, if you've never played it before or never seen it on camera, there are a lot of triggers going on here, and there's a lot of things that you can do with the creatures that are in play, so it's difficult to keep track of. For example, the first Wirewood Symbiote. So Wirewood Symbiote's ability that can only be used once a turn. So the first one has already been used, it's in play, as we do see an attack here. 1 taking out the Liliana, 3 damage going straight to Cody's face. Nettle Sentinel untaps whenever a green spell is played. So there's just a lot of triggering that does go on with this deck. There's a lot of things that you need to basically know the mechanics of this deck to be able to play it correctly.
We see Cody Lingelbach here. I believe he's got a Batterskull in his hand, and that fetch land provides him his first access to white in the form of Scrubland, one of the more mocked by name dual lands.
I find it to be appropriately named, honestly.
Because people that play it are...
No, I'm not saying that. I would never say that. But black and white dual lands, boo. Boo.
I don't remember, or I don't know if he's going to play a Batterskull right now, but I believe he has one in play. And that could be a solid defense. However, one thing to remember, Wirewood Symbiote can bounce any of the elves. which would mean that he could prevent Cody from gaining the life by returning to hand the elf that gets blocked by a germ that could theoretically be in play. We're going to see maybe something a little bit slower. Start out with Deathrite Shaman, put the Umezawa's Jite onto it, and again, the same Wirewood Symbiote trick can work here, though. Cody is not out yet. He's still in this game.
I mean, really trying to put up a fight here, hoping, I think, honestly, that Leon does make some sort of error here. Maybe doesn't realize what he can do with the Wirewood Symbiote. And really, you know, the thing that's difficult for the Elves deck is that once counters are placed on Umezawa's Jit, it's very hard to kind of break that up. But for the Elf deck, its goal is just to make sure that those Jit counters are never placed on it. As we see a Green Sun Zenith drawn for Leon this turn.
Now Leon is in the position where he is very close to potentially comboing off. Now he's been beating Cody in the head with attacks, but this deck, attacks are kind of its failsafe. Its primary purpose is to be a combo deck and beat you in that way.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about this deck is that, you know, it can just take on a beatdown role because they're just draws that it has with Glimpse of Nature where, you know, it just, you know, draws a bunch of elves, cantrips a bunch, and then, all right, I'm just going to attack you for a bunch with these elves. Now, of course, its primary means of victory is through attacking, either with Azuri Renegade Leader creating a couple of overruns or Mirror Entity making a bunch of large creatures, but it can't just play kind of like a normal kind of mopey aggro deck, which is what it's doing this game.
I mean, the thing about a ton of dorks is they have power and toughness.
Yeah.
And in Legacy, one of the interesting things about Legacy, other than Terminus, there is not much in the way to wipe down a bunch of dorks.
As right now, we are seeing a Green Sun Zenith here for one, searching out a Deathrite Shaman. Zenith, of course, being shuffled back in by Leon.
We see 3 mana being created. Oh, no, never mind. It's the attack. Even the symbiote coming in. Is that accurate? Is that right?
I mean, that's what it looks like to me. That's a little bit of a surprising attack.
Huh. If you're just joining us, this is the first game between Leon Kornacki with Elves and Cody Lingelbach with Team Italia. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Cedric Phillips. Cody is contemplating what he's going to do here with his Deathrite Shaman. First, he wastelands the Pendelhaven, putting Leon to a decision of where he's going to use that Pendelhaven. And he uses it on the symbiote. Now, if you look at this, this is an attack for 6 damage. This is going to force Cody to block in a way that will kill his Deathrite Shaman. 2 tokens on the Umezawa's Jite. Cody Lingelbach drops to 1 life. Umezawa's Jite, though, now has counters, which is an incredibly dangerous state of affairs.
Yeah, it's going to be important here. I'm not sure if Leon's going to be able to make it out of this alive. He is down to 1 life. If he is able to draw a land here, what do we see? We see a Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, that's not a bad draw.
Stoneforge Mystic can get Umezawa's Jite and Batterskull in game 1, both of which are already in the mix. So the jig is up, Cody. We know that your card is Batterskull in hand. After sideboard, there are no other swords that can be carried. There are swords to plowshares.
And we do see just an equip here from Leon, or excuse me, from Cody. Umezawa's Jite onto the Stoneforge Mystic, and you're going to see him take care of the Wirewood Symbiote.
And no responses from Leon. Leon here is just going to try to kill. Cody can... Cody's in real trouble here, just from the beatdown elements of things. A green spell untaps that Nettle Sentinel.
And you did see that Leon did draw a Windswept Heath for the turn. He does have access to a bio in his deck list, which is a black source of mana to be able to actually remove an instant or sorcery for Deathrite Shaman to deal those last points of damage. But we are going to see a Green Sun Zenith here from Leon for 2, untapping that Nettle Sentinel.
And as long as Leon does this activation properly, I think Cody is dead.
And there's an Elvish Visionary. And yeah, assuming those life totals are correct, it is 16-1, and I'm fairly sure those are correct. I'm not really sure that Cody's going to be able to get himself out of this situation.
Unless there's a Bayou in Leon's hand, I think that Cody is dead. Okay, he does the draw.
Draws into a Birchlaw Ranger.
In come these folk right here. Cody Lingelbach. As soon as he does anything with that Jite, the Deathrite Shaman is going to murder him. And he cannot survive this turn without doing something with the Jite. Gain 2? No. Show me the Bayou, says Cody. And Cody's ready. There it is.
There's a concession. All right. So Leon Kornacki up a game here with his Elves deck as they're going through the motions there of seeing what's going to be removed. Cody down a game with his Team Italia deck, and I know that you have his deck list in front of you. We did bring up Perish earlier. What else does he have in addition to those to kind of turn this around?
I like Swords to Plowshares a lot. Every little bit of removal is an important part because this elf deck, if you tear apart all of its creatures, it doesn't have anything going. It's not like High Tide where it can go off from the hand. It has to go off on the table. Gatekeeper of Malakir, just because it's a 3-mana removal spell, it's not exciting, but it's yet another piece of just removal. And I would probably stop there unless you think Deathrite Shaman to nix Leon Kornacki's Deathrite Shamans is useful, and I'm not convinced that it is.
No.
So I like those 3 cards to begin with.
Taking a look over here at Leon's deck list, you guys are going to find a lot of one-ofs in his sideboard, and the reason for that is because Leon is starting 3 Living Wish in his main deck. Now, he does have one of those traditional Living Wish sideboards where he has a Mazavith, a Caracas to search for, a Humility, which obviously can't be searched for with that card, but it's something that he would bring in against Show and Tell, obviously not for this matchup. A Wirewood Symbiote, a Heritage Druid, a Nettle Sentinel, Kosali Pride Mage, Fairy Macabre, Mere Entity, a Regal Force, a Craterhoof Behemoth, and an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. I don't foresee many of those cards coming in because, of course, it would break up his Living Wish engine. And then the non-singletons in his sideboard are 3 chokes. And, of course, he's not against a blue deck. So I would be a little bit surprised to see any sideboarding here in general, since he is really trying to abuse Living Wish to the best of his ability.
I mean, the only thing that when you have a deck list built like this sideboard-wise, the only reason you would board in one of these singletons is if you don't really want to ever tutor for it, but you could imagine it being valuable. And looking through these cards, I don't know that any of those in the sideboard qualify for that. So I expect any sideboarding that Kornacki does is just subterfuge, and he's boarding it in and boarding it out.
Yeah. Kind of for a sleight of hand type trick.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people put a lot of stock in these kinds of tricks. My feeling is that the returns on those kind of tricks are much less than simply practicing your game. Getting good at Magic through playing it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, there's not a lot of effort involved in having those kind of tricks. I mean, I suppose you can make a mistake, but with a little bit of practice, you know, it's a small edge that can be gained through that. I definitely agree with you overall, though, with your point of, you know, it's more important to know how to play your deck than try to get into these games inside of the game with this tricky sideboarding and maxing and minning type things. There's just really, it's more important to know exactly how your deck works before you really do try to get into the next level, as Pat Chapin would put it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about this game, it's an incredibly difficult, incredibly complicated game, and it doesn't wait around for you. If you sit on your hands, well, a few months are going to pass, and you might not even know what's happening anymore. So doing things like keeping your game sharp are important in a big way. Little tricks, I think that there is a real place for them, but for most players, the little tricks should be secondary just to keeping yourself sharp. Leon Kornacki here is going to be on the draw. Cody Lingelbach, Team Italia down a game, looking to maybe use a Perish combined with creature removal he has to keep Leon from being able to oh my goodness. Right there is one of the monsters of this matchup, Grim Lavamancer.
I mean, a reusable shock against this kind of deck, it's, you know, it's not as good as Umezawa's Jeet, of course, but they do play similar roles in what they are trying to accomplish. As we see a Fyndhorn Health here from Leon. If he's able to get his graveyard stocked up, and he is starting right away here with a Bloodstained Mire, Grim Lavamancer by itself can take over a game, and it won't really come as much as a surprise to you, Adrian, that Leon doesn't really have a great way to go about getting this off the board.
Yeah, the few cards that he has to deal with it, we saw this earlier when he sneakily got out a Dryad Harbor to kill Dark Confidant. That's his path for most of the creature removal is, let's get in a fight and you didn't realize it was going to be bad for you.
And right now we do see an Inquisition here from Cody Lingelbach. It's going to reveal a Quirion Ranger, a Wirewood Symbiote, a Deathrite Shaman, along with 2 of those Living Wishes that we spoke of during sideboard to go along with the Bayou. So now Cody's really just going to sculpt his game plan around the cards that he has seen here from Leon. And you can see that Leon moving a Living Wish back because you can't take them both. This isn't Cabal Therapy after all.
Oh, that's such a good card.
But few things are.
Cabal Therapy, black sorcery, name a card, your opponent reveals their hand and discards all cards with the same name as what you've named. And a Quirion Ranger is wisely removed by Cody Lingelbach, and then Cody removes his fetched land and the discard spell in order to burn away, with Grim Lavamancer, the elf in play.
And the goal here, of course, is Elves is a deck that kind of snowballs on itself. The more Elves that are in play, the more the deck can do. And the goal is just to keep those off of the board the best that you can, as you see Wirewood Symbiote and Deathrite Shaman hitting play here. Again, we're going to see a similar situation that we saw in Game 1, which is you have to take care of the Symbiote first in order to be able to take care of the rest of them. Grim Lavamancer, of course, is going to do a fantastic job of that, so long as Cody can get some more cards in his graveyard. And the step in that direction is probably going to begin with a fetch land.
You can see a Perish in hand. You can see an Umezawa's Jeet in hand. I think we're just going to see him completely tearing open Leon's board. He's contemplating the Perish. It's not very exciting to only hit 2 creatures, but every time you wait a little bit, you risk your opponent just destroying you before you can use it. I mean, it's a very explosive deck. It's very dangerous, and it's exciting to wait on that Perish, but dangerous in another way too. Lingering Souls.
Yeah, I mean, the Perish right now, it is going to be able to take care of just the Wirewood Symbiote because of Deathrite Shaman actually being an elf as opposed to what I thought it was when it was first printed as a human. Wirewood Symbiote would be able to return that, so Perish will be trading 1 for 1, and I think we both agree that we can do a lot better with Perish so long as we can get that Wirewood Symbiote off the table.
And here you see Deathrite Shaman eats Lingering Souls. 2 damage to Cody Lingelbach. There are, I can't tell which Pokemon those are, but those are Pokemon spirits, are they not?
Those are Pokemon spirits, absolutely. And somehow our show director knows which Pokemon spirits they are.
Nidoran, is that correct? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but our show director, oh my gosh.
And now what you see here for Cody during his draw step is he drew his 4th land for the Umezawa's Jeet that Adrian did speak about. It is going to equip one of those Nidoran, as it were, and these do fly. So the beatdowns are going to come in the air. 2 Jeet counters are going to be placed onto the artifact. And this is what Leon does not want to see. This is definitely worst case scenario. Not only is it a creature that he can't stop, but it's just a reusable way to keep loading up the Umezawa's Jeet. And we're going to start here again with the Wirewood Symbiote.
That's the most important creature to get off the table. I mean, I look at what's in play right now, and I actually don't see a very good path for Leon Kornacki unless he can power through on this next turn with some phenomenal combination of cards.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be extremely difficult. You know, you can say that Pendelhaven is going to play a little bit of a role here because it can block Umezawa's Jeet activation, for lack of a better term, but we are also looking at a Wasteland in play for Cody, so even that being a sort of, you know, out or something that would lead him to make a mistake isn't even going to be available.
Is that a really, really ugly Llanowar elf?
It depends on what your definition of ugly is. As we do see a Living Wish here from Leon.
Wow. Okay. Kasali Pride Mage in the sideboard is the only direct answer that Leon Kornacki has to Umezawa's Jite. Other than that, his way of handling an Umezawa's Jite is just to kind of put up with it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's certainly difficult to do. Indirect
answers like Wirewood Symbiote are less useful when your opponent has a flyer. Cody Lingelbach untaps. 2 spirits in play from Lingering Souls. Grim Lavamancer in play. Umezawa's Jite.
And it looks like he's going to be adding something else to the table here, and looks like it's going to be that Perish. And I'm okay with this 2-for-1 trade now. Not only does it clear up the elves that are on the table, but it removes Leon's white source from the table, which was going to be a Deathrite Shaman. It makes that go away as well. So while he does have a Kasali Pride Mage in his hand, I don't really think he has a way to go about casting it right now.
And Leon Kornacki takes this opportunity to gain 2 life by activating the Deathrite Shaman to remove the Wirewood Symbiote. And Cody Lingelbach looks like he made a little small joke about his spirits being green and then chuckling a little bit about it. They're obviously not green,
yes,
but the token sure is tricky that way.
We are going to see a Deathrite Shaman post-combat. We are going to see, I believe, he may have missed the trigger on Umezawa's Jite, excuse me, as that should have went from 1 counter up to 3.
I agree.
That could be a small misstep here. It doesn't look like it's something that Leon's going to be able to take advantage of, but it does look like he did miss that mandatory trigger, as we're going to see a Nettle Sentinel here and just passing the turn back.
And we now live in a world where those missed moments are gone for good unless your opponent says you can have them. Cody Lingelbach looking to wasteland something. Goes with the Pendelhaven. Crop rotation. It always was a good feeling to turn a wasteland into a crop rotation moment.
Yeah, it's one that you don't see very much anymore. As you guys do see crop rotation on the screen. Very powerful card, especially in years past, as it is going to search up the white source that Leon is looking for in Savannah.
Cody Lingelbach here still has a Grim Lavamancer, a Umezawa's Jite, which might not be long for this world, presuming Leon gets another mana, 2 spirits, and a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, Cody doing just fine right now. Even though he did miss that Umezawa's Jite trigger, he's still sitting just fine. And even if Leon were to blow up that Umezawa's Jite with the aforementioned Kasali Pride Mage, there is still a Grim Lavamancer that he has to fight through. And that one, he doesn't have a way to get off of the board. As we do see some attacks here. You see Nettle Sentinel jump right in front of Grim Lavamancer. Can't really blame it. So now Grim Lavamancer off the board. I don't agree with that attack at all. I think that's really undervaluing Grim Lavamancer, honestly.
I'm right there with you.
Right.
Oh, well, maybe he's like, I got this other one. I can throw one away. Looking for the land. Does not find it. Leon says, that is enough. I know what happens now. To the next.
I don't think that's Leon's first time playing against Umezawa's Jite, and I don't think it's going to be his last. And every time is less pleasant than the previous time.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things to be very good about in Magic, a skill that's worth figuring out how to hone. This is not a tricksy skill. This is a practical skill. Knowing when to concede and knowing when not to concede.
I do agree. You know, it's a game of information. It's a game of time. You know, you don't want to give up any more information if you don't have to. You know, this isn't a matchup that is likely going to come down to clock management, but it's certainly something to be cognizant of, you know, because you just never know what can happen.
Yeah, I mean, let's pretend that your opponent, Cody Lingelbach, has, you know, a long game pullout because he's perishing you and all of these other things, and you actually get to a point where you won't be able to combo off. you might have to eke out a beatdown victory, and it could take you a lot of time if you're a deck like Leon Kornacki's, trying to piece together attackers and enough damage to make it be useful. So I'm in full approval of this concession, so on to game 3, Leon Kornacki on the play. Elves, I think, might be the most resilient deck in the format that can also kill you on turn 2.
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting choice for the week, and you know, we've had the opportunity to look over decks, and we've had our coverage runner really help us out with decks, Brendan Hickey, and it's surprising that with how many engineered plays that we've seen this weekend, to see Leon Kornacki having success with Elves this weekend is a bit surprising to me. I mean, that card's obviously a nightmare. It's perish, but just work.
Right.
So, you know, it's a little bit surprising to see, you know, multiple people having success with Elves. Maybe they've just been dodging and getting favorable matchups. A
little bit of juking and jiving, getting in and out of the way of the people that have that card.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do love about Legacy is the absurd diversity of Legacy. Elves is the deck that, in any Legacy event that has, you know, a strong attendance, you will see players succeed with Elves. But there will probably be, if I remember my numbers correctly, only about 2 to 4% of the players in the room playing Elves.
Yeah, it's never ever a very high number. You know, we have seen Chris Anderson on the Open Series circuit been playing Elves to some success. We've also seen Caleb Durward adopt Chris's deck and have some success with it as well. I mean, it's certainly a deck that can win in Legacy. It just seems like it's a deck that, you know, it has to pick its spot correctly, come into the right tournament, walk into the right metagame. This one does feel a little bit hostile to me, but again, Leon is experiencing success, not both with Elves, but also Black-Green Zombies in Standard. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about a deck like Elves, if somebody wants to beat it, if they are looking to play an Elves player, Elves has a glass jaw to that kind of opponent, except for on their god draws.
Yes.
You know? And that is one of the things to think about. You take a deck like Esper Stoneblade. Esper Stoneblade really doesn't have a glass jaw, but it also doesn't have the ability just to utterly destroy someone with no opportunity for them to even fight. There's a kind of a pair, you know, that gains and losses about deck selection in Legacy. I was talking about this perhaps with you or perhaps with Patrick. I really feel that Legacy strongly favors the player who is most prepared for the matchup they're sitting in.
Agreed. I agree 100%.
In a way that you don't even see in other formats. Okay, Leon Kornacki opens with a land go. Cody Lingelbach returns, land, fetches up a bad land, and gets ready to do something with it. He's done this right away on turn 1. Perhaps an Inquisition of Kozilek, perhaps a Thoughtseize, perhaps a Deathrite Shaman. Perhaps a Grim Lavamancer, one of the scariest cards for Leon Kornacki to face down.
And so now we see Kornacki. He's taking a look at his hand here. We do see a Pendelhaven. We see a number of fetch lands here as well. One card that we do not see in his hand, we haven't seen all match, is, of course, Glimpse of Nature, the most important card in this Elves deck. Again, the Elves deck is not a kind of deck that really has a great way to go about finding cards. You're not going to find Ponder, Preordain, or Brainstorm here. You know, it does kind of just have to be a little bit fortunate in to draw this card in its opening hand, or maybe Elvish Visionary into it. But once it is able to find that crucial piece to the deck, that's when the deck really does get going.
Now, his build, Leon Kornacki's build, only has, if I'm looking at these numbers correctly, 7 tutor effects for creatures in his deck. That's 3 Living Wish, 4 Green Sun Zenith. We saw last year Matt Sperling play with 12 tutor effects using Pact, the green Pact as well, Summoner's Pact. And the amount of choices like that, it's one of the ways that this deck varies. Priest of Titania.
As we do see Cody Lingelbach sacrificing another Marsh Flats here, going to search out a scrubland. There's a good chance this Priest of Titania is not long for this world. No guarantees, of course, depending on what's in Cody's hand, which we will find out in just a moment what his plan of action will be.
I'm a fan of killing Priest of Titania every chance I get. That card is so scary.
And we are going to see a Thoughtseize here.
Yep. What do you got over there? What can you do?
So as we spread out Leon's hand, we are going to see a Living Wish, a Crop Rotation, Elvish Visionary to go along with that Pendelhaven.
For a guy with one crop rotation, Leon Kornacki likes to draw it.
He sure does draw it a lot. Leon moves the Pendelhaven back, saying, "You can't touch this with Thoughtseize."
And Cody Lingelbach here contemplating what to take with this Thoughtseize. Grim Lavamancer active and in play with red mana available. A Priest of Titania in play for Leon Kornacki. And he says goodbye to Living Wish. And then he's not going to mess around. Die, Priest, die.
I get that right out of here. You know, for me personally, I'm not entirely sure if that's the card I would take if I'm in Cody's spot. Kind of want to take an Elvish Visionary, as you see that Leon does draw another one. You know, I don't really want to be able to get deeper into his deck as he draws a Living Wish. So it actually doesn't matter what I was going to take. Because whatever I would have taken, it would have been one of those two cards he would have drawn and had anyway. So
Pendelhaven, very good at defending against Grim Lavamancer. Making his 1/1s into 2/3s. Don't be the first to move, the other will win.
So right now we see another Scrubland here, and it looks like we're going to see a Dark Confidant as well here from Cody. Cody's hand also does contain a Vindicate, and we are going to see a Sensei's Divining Top, an altered one.
A little alter going on there.
So he's going to be able to control Dark Confidant, which is nice, as we see a Birchlaw Ranger, drawn for Leon.
Now, tapped out, this would be Leon's opportunity to do something scary, but with no glimpse of nature, the opportunity to be scary, a little bit hindered.
And we are just going to see another Elvish Visionary here. Leon will attempt to draw a card. It is a Wooded Foothills, so does have access to any of his different colors of mana now, be it Savannah, be it Bayou.
For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here in the booth with Cedric Phillips. This is the second round of today with Legacy, round 13 of 16 for the Star City Games Open Series featuring the Invitational here in Los Angeles. These players have come from all over the country, and a few of them from different parts of the world, to play here for an incredible prize of $15,000 to the winner.
As we do see Kornacki search out one of those Savannas now, maybe deciding to play a Birchlaw Ranger here, but it looks like no matter what he does, he is going to leave that Pendelhaven up to protect himself from a Grim Lavamancer activation. You see Cody Lingelbach reading Birchlaw Ranger at home. We'll bring it on the screen for you guys here as well.
Birchlaw Ranger, one of the classic pieces for how this deck works, being able to turn the mana you've invested in your fresh creatures immediately into mana right now. Takes two of them to make one mana of any color, but that is a huge deal when you're trying to expend, the mana required for a combo win. Wasteland from the Dark Confidant can take care of that Pendelhaven, forcing a showdown that is definitely in the favor of the Grim Lavamancer player.
And I think that's a pretty big draw there for Cody. Pendelhaven is just causing some issues here. It'll be interesting to see if he wants to get rid of that or take care of the Savannah. I think Pendelhaven is the more problematic of the two at this stage in the game. And he is going to go for it right now. Now, we know, of course, that Leon does have a crop rotation in his hand that can search for the card I was going to mention, which is a Gaia's Cradle. We'll see if that's what he chooses to do. And that's what we are going to find.
Nice.
Gaia's Cradle, boy, I remember that card back in the day was an expensive one.
Crop rotation into Gaia's Cradle was one of those things that was called the Green Dark Ritual back in the day.
No. It's a heck of a card. The only thing that's really stopping it from being completely busted is that it is legendary, as we do see a Vindicate take care of it now, too. So, a little Stone Rain action. We're going to see Leon draw a card here. He does draw a Priest of Titania to go along with his Living Wish, so there's a bit of a decision to be had here. Again, we do have this Living Wish sideboard in front of us for Leon. There is a Karakas to go along with the Mazavith here, a Wirewith Symbiote, a Heritage Druid, a Nettle Sentinel, a Kosali Pride Mage, a Fairy Macabre, a Mirror Entity, a Regal Force, a Craterhoof Behemoth, and an Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. As we are going to see him cast that Living Wish, and we'll see what he is going to decide to get. And he has gone with the Wirewith Symbiote to start the mini combo, Adrian, of Wirewith Symbiote plus Elvish Visionary.
One of the best things that this deck can do is just produce cards. And even though there's a Grim Lavamancer doing a lot of effective removal on Leon Kornacki's side of the board, fighting against this, you can still do it. It's that Dark Confidant, that Grim Lavamancer. Leon needs to do something very powerful very soon before those two cards take over.
And we do see Dark Confidant reveal the third scrubland there for Leon to go along with the Vindicate for the draw step. So Cody is still doing just fine. Can play the scrubland, Vindicate something, and then, have a Grim Lavamancer activation as well. I think, again, what we've seen in the previous two games is that Wirewood Symbiote, of course, has to be the first to go.
Yes. Wirewood Symbiote, just such a scary card. When they printed it, a lot of people were kind of underwhelmed, but that's too bad because it's really great.
Yeah.
There he goes. Die, Wirewood Symbiote, die. Returning a Visionary. Yeah. Untaps Birchlore Rangers. And now the question becomes, what is the next move?
You see Cody play
Gatekeeper of Malakir. Either one of these creatures' deaths is acceptable, so that seems fair.
Yeah, this is a win-win either way. I think by casting that, either creature that dies, as you said, he's happy with, and you can save that Vindicate for something a little bit more important, like the Deathrite Shaman that Leon was able to draw that turn.
And we see a Elvish Visionary. There's another Deathrite Shaman. One of the things that's very interesting about how this game has played out, Leon Kornacki has drawn crop rotation, only one copy, every single game he's drawn it, but he has yet to see a single glimpse of nature that he has 4 copies of.
Yeah, which is quite strange, as you're going to see the other Deathrite Shaman hit play. And now, it's a case of if he does actually finally draw that glimpse of nature, it is a lot worse off now.
And we see the activation of the Sensei's Divining Top during the upkeep so that the Dark Confidant can be a little bit more controlling in what it gives you. What you got for me, boss? And it's an Umezawa's Jite. That is one of the most devastating potential draws that Cody could put forth. And we're going to see... Gosh. This is going to be pretty rough for Leon Kornacki.
Yeah, you're going to see almost no hesitation here. You're going to see Umezawa's Jite. It's going to get suited up to the Gatekeeper Malakar. And I think we might be having a visit to the red zone.
Here it comes. 2 damage. And it is not blocked. 2 counters on the Umezawa's Jite. Lots of options here with this now.
Yeah, Lingelbach has the option of just taking care of the 2 1/1s. And he's going to take care of a Birchlore Ranger here. And he can also take care of an Elvish Visionary. But he's just going to hold off. Not much of a rush, as we do see Leon draw an Azuri Renegade Leader. One of the win conditions for his deck, it is a regenerating, overrunning elf legend. But one thing that legend cannot do is save him from Umezawa's Jite.
The Jite was one of those cards that it probably took players about, I would say, 2 days to figure out was good. I remember at the pre-release, really good players saying, Umezawa's Jite, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it would do very much. One of those people was a Pro Tour champion eventually, Mike Huron. But the thing is all you've got to really do is see what happens when a Jite connects, and then you're like, okay, that was absurd.
Yeah, I remember that the pre-release, actually, funny story that you bring that up, that was, during college for me, and one of my playtest partners back then was an Indiana player that you may know, Nick Little.
Of course, Nick Little. Yep.
And he had Umezawa's Jite in his sideboard because he thought it said when only it deals damage to a player.
Right.
Instead of just combat damage, which would make it a drastically different card.
If you ever look at an Umezawa's Jite, if you count the number of words on it, it's very easy to misread.
Yeah.
There are so many words on this thing, and I think a lot of people thought that these activated abilities cost mana. The equipment was fairly new as well, so there was just a lot of things going on that made this not work out for people. Gaia's Cradle in play now is a possible source for a lot of mana. Azuri is able to pump up for a fair amount on subsequent turns, but what we're going to see here, Lingering Souls, land on top. Bob says, give me that. There's a land for free. Draws the Lingering Souls. He's got only one card in the graveyard for the Grim Lavamancer, but I believe as soon as he gets another one in the graveyard, Grim Lavamancer is going to burn down Izuri's house. Can he get that card in the graveyard, though? Vindicate, perhaps?
Vindicate
Boom.
it is.
Vindicates the Gaia's Cradle. I like that play a lot. Now Izuri is sitting there ready to be killed. Dead Izuri. 2 cards, go bye-bye. And in with the Gatekeeper of Malakir and with Dark Confidant. 4 damage, 2 counters on the Umezawa's Jite. And Leon Kornacki, he's going to have to work really hard to get out of this one.
As we're going to see a post-combat Deathrite Shaman here as well. And I have to echo your sentiments. It's going to be almost impossible to get out of this one as we see a Heritage Druid drawn there by Leon. It is just going to be... I'm trying to think of the sequence of events that can take place to get out of this situation. When you're staring down what he's staring down, you're staring down an active Umezawa's Jite, you're staring down an active Grim Lavamancer, you're staring down a source of card advantage and card manipulation and Dark Confidant and Sensei's Divining Top. What can you really do, Adrian?
The options are endless, but they all involve things happening that are not in this plane of reality.
Yes. And that's how it feels to me, as we're going to see Heritage Druid and Priest Titania coming down. 2 cards that are, part of what this deck is trying to accomplish. 2 integral pieces to the deck, but 2 pieces right now that just don't have very much effect on the game. As we see Leon remove something to Deathrite Shaman to deal Cody, I believe, 2 points of damage, potentially gain 2 life. Either way, the life totals may swing up, they may swing down.
The Umezawa's Jite basically guarantees Cody is not going to be under any duress with the damage. The Dark Confidant and there we go. Thank you, Leon Kornacki, for letting that one go.
Yep.
I appreciate that very much, personally.
I appreciate a good fight just as much as anybody else does. I don't like to concede. I like to make my opponent kill me, but a man can only take so much. Can only take so much of a beating before they give in. It looked like Pacquiao in the 6th.
Oh boy! For those of you who are just joining us, we just witnessed the end of the first match of Legacy in this